And John Hollinger of The Athletic joins us now, former front office member of the Memphis Grizzlies as well. John, you laid out frustratingly accurate how bad the Sacramento Kings were defensively last season. Do you think that they've done enough to improve that?
Well, everything's relative, right? I mean, the bar for improvement is quite low at this point, right? So, if they could just be the 10th worst defense instead of the worst defense, then you got a decent shot at a 500 season. And so have they done enough to at least do that? I mean, you would hope. I mean, I think drafting Davion Mitchell will help. I think starting Halliburton and bringing Hield off the bench, which it seems like they're going to do, that'll probably help. If Richaun Holmes is in the lineup all year, that'll certainly help. You worry a little bit that they just don't have a lot of guys at the forward spot. And especially if something happens to Harrison Barnes, they're just going to be cobbling that together every single night. And how is that going to work? And then the other thing you got to ask about is just Luke Walton's ability to get the best out of these guys.
John, we've been kind of going crazy about Davion Mitchell since the day he started playing in this California Classic out here in the Summer League. And I saw him a couple of times in this preseason. And the question coming out of Summer League was, okay, is he going to be able to do this against real, quote unquote, real NBA guys? And he goes up against a Cameron Payne or an Elfrid Payton or a Reggie Jackson, Paul George, Anthony Simons last night, Dennis Smith Jr. And I keep using the phrase, he's as advertised when going up against these guys on the defensive end. Have you been able to see him and are you impressed with what he's able to do on a defensive end? And I hate to ask you another question, but is it enough to kind of change the culture by himself, by the mere addition to him to this team of the struggles they had on the defensive end last year?
Yeah, I mean, I can answer the last one first. I mean, asking De'Aaron Fox's backup to change the culture is probably a big ask. But what you said is right on about what he's shown. He showed it at Baylor last year. He showed it in Summer League. He showed it in the preseason game. You cannot get by this guy off the dribble. Like his lateral quickness on the ball is as good as anyone that I can remember seeing. He's just phenomenal in that aspect of defense. And so, and I think that's the type of thing that it's easy to see and notice, and you hope maybe it would be a little contagious for the other guys. I mean, I think Sacramento, one of the issues last year was just, I don't want to say they weren't trying, but maybe it wasn't quite the level of effort and commitment required every night that you really need at the highest level in this league. And so can he have some kind of impact on that? Yeah, you would hope so. Or, can he energize these second units for Sacramento? I mean, the one thing I will say is that even last year, like Corey Joseph was a good defender, right? He was probably the best defensive player on the team. So Mitchell was playing in that role. So, like, relative to last year, it's still kind of the other positions that need to get better,
right,
for Sacramento's defense to really take a jump.
Yeah. Yep.
John Hollinger of The Athletic was here. John, I mentioned that you had worked in the front office of the Memphis Grizzlies, I believe president of basketball operations, vice president of basketball operations. Did you ever have a guy like you're not particularly high on Tristan Thompson on this Sacramento Kings team, and it looks like some of that is based off of his experience in Boston, which went south for whatever reason. But he has really won over a lot of Kings fans in the way that he is talked about this team, and really he's been the ultimate hype man for guys like Davion Mitchell, even for guys like Buddy Hield. He's been the ultimate hype man for him. Have you ever had a guy on your team who, maybe they weren't playing 20 minutes a night, hell, maybe they weren't even playing every night, but they wound up being a really integral part of, the structure of your team?
Like a culture guy, basically.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's definitely a thing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was a little surprised. Like, DeLon Wright was a valuable player. They didn't need to trade him for another center. So that was the part that really surprised me about what they did. I mean, the Kings have like 7 centers and no forwards now. If you look at their roster, I mean, even like Marvin, like I don't know what they're going to do with Marvin Bagley, but I mean, really, I think his best position is center. I just don't see how he could ever play a minute there the way this roster is set up. I'm really curious what their intentions are with him, and so that's the part where it gets kind of weird for me. So, but like you said, I mean, there are definitely some veteran guys that you kind of want to have around, but usually, like, you know, that's a guy you bring in on a minimum contract. You know, it's Jared Dudley with the Lakers or whatever, and so to take a valuable player and trade him for a guy at a position that you were already crowded at, it just didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. One of the other issues or interesting things we want to see happen or how it's going to play out with the Kings is this guard situation. Now we have De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton. They're pretty much put in pin at the starting 2 guards to start the game. But then you have Buddy Hield, Davion Mitchell, and a guy that I kind of like his game. I like his game a lot, especially coming off the bench, Terrence Davis. And you wonder how they're going to be able to orchestrate all those bench minutes, because you got to get Davion out there, obviously. And I personally, John, I think Terrence Davis is a better player than Buddy Hield, but Buddy Hield making $20 million a year, he's going to get every opportunity. So does that mean maybe Terrence Davis, who may be the better player, kind of gets his minutes cut out? How would you orchestrate that minutes?
What's going to happen is they're going to end up having to play 3-guard lineups a bunch because they don't have any forwards. I mean, that's what's going to, you know, I mean, the only guy on the team who's a 3 really is Harrison Barnes. I mean, Robert Woodard, I guess, but I don't think he's really playing at all.
They got Mo Harkless out there too.
Yeah. It's kind of a 3.5, I guess. I mean, I think he's really going to end up playing 4 because they just have all these centers, so like everyone else kind of has to get pushed down. I don't know. I'm interested to see how they actually work it in practice. But I think what you're going to see is like second unit, it'll be 3 guards out there. It'll be Mitchell, Davis, and Hield, and that's the way it works. Another guy you didn't mention, by the way, Jamius Ramsey was pretty good in Summer League.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of like to see him get a little bit of a chance. I don't know how he does in this backcourt. But,
I think he's going to start in Stockton. He's still really, really young, John. You know, he's like, I think he might be 21 now. He's still pretty young. Yeah, he kind of reminds me of freshman year. Yeah. He reminds me of kind of Anthony Simons in Portland, how he just came in really, really young and still trying to develop his game a little bit.
Yeah.
John, the most glowing thing I think that you wrote in all of this was actually about Richaun Holmes, short range floater master, is quite possibly the league's most underrated player. What do you like so much about Richaun?
I think I mean, the floater game, first of all, I mean, I think it's
automatic.
Every team by surprise that he's doing this, right?
Yeah.
And, but he really was the one guy, I think, who the defense looked halfway decent when he was out there on the floor. He's not the biggest guy, but he pretty much knows where to be. He's a pretty good shot blocker, and he doesn't make the kind of errors that other people on that team were making last year. So I just think he helps them a lot in a lot of subtle ways, and it adds up to a pretty valuable player. And they were able to keep him on a pretty good contract too. So he's not even clogging their cap or anything to keep him around. So I mean, for all the errors of the Vlade era, that was quite a find to pick him up.
Yeah. You're listening to ESPN 1320 KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, and Odyssey Station, and driven by Lashers, Elk Grove Dodge. We have John Hollinger from The Athletic on. And John, I got to ask you the $1 million question here, man. You got to help us out. You can be a hero. You can be a god here in Sacramento if you give the right answer. Does the postseason streak end for the Sacramento Kings this year? 15 years.
I mean, you guys have been.
You could be a hero, right? John. Come on, man. You could be a hero.
I want to help you out here. It's a beautiful arena and a great fan base, but I actually think they're going to get close. I think they're going to be in the race this year, but I think they're probably going to end up on the outside looking in. I think it's probably going to turn out kind of a lot like the last 2 years where they, 2 to 3 games out at the end of the year.
Oh, that'd just be another heartbreaker.
We could have had it all, John. Could have had it all. I really wanted to have you on, and you just say everything we wanted to hear. But we appreciate you, man. Thanks for the great breakdown, and thanks for carving out a few minutes for us, Sean. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.